Hi everybody, and welcome to the Hitachi plasma screen TV repair part 7. Some of you may be wondering, why is there a part 7 to this series? Part 6 was, I checked, it was back in 2013. Today it's August 2017, so that was 4 years ago. So 4 years ago I completed the repairs on this TV in July, and here we are almost exactly 4 years later, August, and the TV died this morning. I literally sat down, turned on the TV. My wife had watched it all last night without an issue. When I turned it on this morning, I probably watched it for maybe 15 minutes and it suddenly died. And it went out in a kind of a strange way that just made me think right away, this wasn't some fluke where it just accidentally shut off or whatever. This was something more serious because it shut down and it went to the power light, the blue LED blinking 3 times, which is a protection mode, meaning that it's detecting a short circuit. So I'll show you. I've got the vacation or main power switch off. So I'll turn that on, and we get the standby light. That's the light that says it's ready to accept the command from the remote. And I'm going to now turn it on with the remote.
So the media.
So you see the audio comes up, the video comes up but doesn't look right just for a second, and then it immediately shuts down. The fan barely comes up to full speed before it shuts down, and it goes to a blinking blue light, which pauses and then blinks exactly 3 times, which is the classic trouble code for a protection mode shutdown. There's a power supply problem, or the power supply is detecting a short circuit somewhere. So, TV I believe was about 5 years old when I fixed it last time. It's now 9 years old. So, I think it's time for a new TV. The thing is, we're in August, and the timing is just not quite right. We're close. Typically what ends up happening is football season's getting ready to start. And when football season starts, I tend to notice that it seems like a lot of good sales pop up on TV screens, big screen TVs, because, you know, people love their football. But just for the heck of it, let's open this one up again. Grab it under here, like this. Okay? And we'll grab it up here to study it, because it's very top heavy. It kind of wants to. All right.
Oh, that's heavy.
Do you think you're not going to be able to do it?
Oh no.
No? Okay, all right.
It weighs like 100 pounds.
Plasma screen TVs are heavy. Yeah.
I can't believe this can take the weight.
What?
I can't believe this can take the weight.
Well, it doesn't take the weight really well. As a matter of fact, that's why these doors don't shut correctly on this fine piece of furniture anymore.
That would work correctly.
That was made a little bit sturdier, I guess. This is a long, there's no support here. There's no support right here. They put underneath there, they put a little hidden leg there. That's supposed to keep that from sagging in the middle there, but this top still sags. Sags enough so that it's hard to get these doors to close. This one doesn't even close all the way anymore. That's a fine quality, and this wasn't cheap. You know, it's not like we went to Bubba Joe's Bargain Outlet and bought, you know.
$2 stand.
Yeah, $2 stand?
200
$2 stand.
That stand over there worth $2.
Maybe because it's near the edge, maybe you can lift it up now.
Oh, there we go.
There you go. See? You can do it. You can do it! Alright. Good man. Whew. Alright, let's quit for the day. Alright, so I skipped way ahead to where we've got the back off because there's a million screws in the back of this thing. And if you need more detailed information on how to take one of these apart, which screws to take out, which screws to leave or whatever, you can look back at, I think, part 1 of this series. So, anyways, last time what I ended up finding wrong on this thing was two of the capacitors on this main power supply module, which is this big board right in the center right here, were bad, and it was these two capacitors right here. And the way I could tell that they were bad was the fact that the tops were domed or bowed out. And essentially what everybody says about this particular model is that it's a typical problem for those two capacitors to fail, and when they fail they tend to balloon up, and that their failure can lead to damaging the chips in the SDU boards here. So you've got two boards here that are called SDU boards, and you have an SDU upper and an SDU lower. Might have that nomenclature wrong, but anyways, most people know what I'm talking about as far as which boards these are. So one of these boards is responsible for the top half of the screen, and the other board is responsible for the bottom half of the screen. And each section of the screen is managed by one of these black squares right here, is actually an integrated circuit. Now, because of the way that they work and that they're all on the same power supply line, all you need is one of these 2, 4, 6, 8, 16 chips. You only need one of these 16 chips to short out. And once one of these 16 chips shorts out, it's going to shut down the power supply. It's going to put an excessive drain on the output of that power supply and cause the thing to go in shutdown mode. So my caps, my new caps that I put in 4 years ago, still look fantastic. They're actually 3,300 microfarad, I believe, is the rating, and they actually are rated for a little bit more working voltage, I think. So physically they're a little bit larger, but they were able to fit in there, and they seem to be doing fine. I do not see any other capacitors on this circuit board that have any appearance of bulging cap disease, so I'm not convinced that that's an issue. I think what happened was, I think that another one of these chips failed. Now, I don't recall whether or not, I think I ended up replacing both of these boards. I think what ended up happening was I replaced one board, and then after I replaced the one board, the other board failed immediately, and it may have been something I did, but I'm not sure. So these boards do look a little different from each other because they probably came from different sources. And my understanding is that the original boards had really lousy chips on them, and that there was an improvement in later ones. So I don't know whether or not one of these is earlier or later. But they do definitely have just the coloring of the silk screening. So if we actually look at these side by side, the color of the green, I said silk screening, what I mean to say is this this epoxy coating that protects the copper run on the board. The color of the green on this board is quite a bit different than the color on this board. Also, the protective coating that's on or goes around the chip on here looks a little bit thinner on these, and it's a little bit wider and sloppier on these. And the most interesting thing to me is when I look at all of the chips on this board, they're all very uniform. But when I look at this board over here, this one chip right here is much darker and sticks out compared to all the other ones. So this may have been a reworked board. This board may have been a board that had a bad chip in this location, and somebody installed a new chip on here, resealed this, and then sent it out as a repair board. And that might be why I probably got it so cheap on eBay. But the question is, do I have a bad board? Okay, so when I look at these really up close with my eyeglasses on and some extra light on the subject, I see one chip on this board that's suspect, and then I see, of course, one chip on this board is suspect is this one here. Now this one like I said, this might just look different because it may have been reworked. Looks to me like that chip was replaced, and I think whoever replaced it didn't bother removing the flux when they got done. So I think that's what's that goop is that's visible on that chip that makes it look so different than all of the other ones. Now, interestingly enough, oh, and by the way, these boards are called SDR boards. So there's an SDRU for upper and an SDRD for downer. So on this board, there is another chip right here that has a little bit of a goop on it. But what's different about this chip, and I don't know if the camera's going to pick this up or not, but right up at the top right corner, there's a little line. It almost appears to look almost like a crack in that sealant. And there's a little mark there. It almost appears as if something really bad happened there and caused that little mark. Like maybe this chip blew. Kind of grasping at straws. The only other one that has any mark on it of any type is there is a little dot on this one right here. Oftentimes you can actually see a little pinhole right in the chip and a little cracked area around it. That is a dead giveaway that that chip is blown. But I think that doesn't look conclusive to me. So I don't know. This is the one I'm going to assume that chip is bad. So I'm going to unplug this board, and I'm going to leave the other board plugged in, and I'm going to try and power the set on. And if the set comes on and stays on and only has half the screen, then we know that this board is bad. All right, to take this board off, to unplug this board, what you do is I'm not taking it completely out, so I'm going to leave these ribbon cables intact because these can be a pain to deal with for the moment. And I took these two screws out. That allows you to wiggle and pull this board, this plug right out from here. That disconnects the board from this board, but it still keeps the connections to the screen connected, which is fine for the purposes of testing. Obviously, we'll have to disconnect these if I end up changing the board out. So now, what I need to do is I need to tilt this up so that I can actually power this thing up and look at the screen. Okay, so I just moved that board. Got this mounted so that I can fire it up, and I know the board is not touching anything. So I've got the main power off right now, so I'm going to turn the main power back on. It's in standby, and I'm going to power this up. All right, and shut right off. Well, there's one of three possibilities. Possibility number one, there's nothing wrong with the board we just unplugged, and it's the other board. Possibility number two, both boards have something wrong. And possibility number three, it's neither of the boards, it's something else. Oh, actually, there's a fourth possibility, which is both boards are bad and something else is wrong. All right, so now what I did was I plugged in the upper board again and unplugged the lower board, and we'll do the same test. And it's in standby, and we'll power it up. Aha! That looks good. Okay, so I don't want to run it too long like that. Might not be a good idea. And so, the SDR D board is bad. Now, I don't know why it failed, but it failed. So, I guess we'll order one of those, because even though the TV is now close to 10 years old, it's short money for that board, really. I mean, I think I can pick that board up on eBay for like under $50 shipped. And even if I squeeze just a few more months out of this thing until I can pick up a good deal on a You know, maybe a 4K TV or something, huh? How about that? That wouldn't be too shabby. What do you think, Aiden?
Yeah.
4K, 60 inch.